Hi, my name is Roberta Dombrowski. I am a product manager at Pluralsight. I am a part of the 30 Under 30 program here at the Learning 2018. It is an absolute pleasure to introduce my next speaker. I met Bob over 4 years ago at Performance Support Symposium in Austin, Texas, and I heard him talk about the 5 moments of need, and I was in awe and captivated by what he was talking about. And I ended up going home after the conference and actually buying a copy of Innovative Performance Support. I think I finished it in literally a week. But Bob has over 35 years experience in L&D. He is the CEO and Chief Learning Evangelist at Apply Synergies. He founded the performance support community, and I can honestly say it is a pleasure to introduce my friend Bob.
Well, thank you. Can you hear me? I can't see you, so this is great. How are you? How's the conference? Brilliant. Good. Well, I will do my best to carry that forward, friends. So in honor of our First Lady, I will start with a story. Back in 1982, I was 22 years old, and I was a camp counselor at a YMCA camp. I was asked to teach swimming. And it was my first time teaching swimming, but at the same time, friends, I was also in the middle of my undergraduate degree in education. I started out this journey 35 years ago, believe it or not. I was 8, as a elementary school teacher. So I'm in the middle, guys. I'm in the thick of my studies to be a teacher. So my mindset is lesson plans, instruction. So I'm thinking I'm going to teach these kids to swim, and standing before me in the gutter are minnows. Anyone want to guess what minnows are, besides small fish? Yeah, they're 5, 6-year-old kids that are trying to learn to swim for the first time. I am in the pool with my gifted instructor sitting next to me who has taught swimming for multiple years. By the way, he is not an education major like I am, right? He's doing the best he can, and I'm about to utter those famous words. I got my lesson plans in my head, maybe a little e-learning back at the cabin. I'm all ready for doing all of this instruction. He reaches over, grabs one of the minnows, yanks them off the gutter into the water. Immediately, this poor child begins to sink, spit a whole bit. My friend puts his arms underneath him. Oh, you're doing great, you're doing great. And every minnow in the gutter is now as far from the pool as they possibly can be. And he's like, you're doing great. And the kid bumps up the water and goes back under the whole thing, guides him all the way, and he throws his arms up onto the gutter, spitting water, and my fellow instructor's going, oh my God, that was great, you did good. And I am looking at this man going, what was that? You know, that was not in my lesson plan frame of instruction. I wanted these minnows to become guppies, right? Which is the next card in the swimming lesson thing. And my very gifted colleague looks at me and goes, Bob, what do you think we're doing here? We only have a week. And I went, what do you mean? He said, Bob, what do you think we're here to do? Teach swimming or prevent drowning? No, from the table in front. So my friends, I want to start my journey into workflow learning and performance support with my challenge to you with what you do every day in your organizations. Do you teach swimming or do you prevent drowning? Right? And I guarantee you, and I'm going to challenge you in the 40 minutes I've got, to have you look at the way you design differently, because from that moment on, that epiphany in my life on, I never approached instruction the same way. Because I guarantee you, if I gave you the challenge of preventing someone from drowning or teaching them to swim, the first thing you would do in drowning was do what? What would you get them? A life preserver, wouldn't you? If your job in the limited time you had with 6-year-olds so they would not jump in the deep end and drown, the first thing you would do is go out and find a life preserver. You would not be worrying about teaching them the breaststroke, which I was all about. Make sense? So friends, here's my challenge. Your learners whom you support are drowning at work every day. They come to our classes. We have lots of stuff, lots of content, lots of things we go through. We overwhelm them. We swamp them with the content that we teach, and we hope they go back and appropriately swim and not drown. 5 moments of need. Workflow learning is about designing for not drowning, which, by the way, at the same time, you learn an awful lot about swimming. Okay? So, let's do this together as a group. I want to challenge you. At your tables, I want to give you a couple minutes to do this, because I want to get a little bit more into really what we're here to design and what is ultimately most effective for what we should be building. So see this challenge, friends? From the list I'm about to show you, I want you to pick the top 2 things as a learner in your life that you have used to master, learn, remember, and apply the greatest performance challenges of your life. Here's your list. And notice 9 is another. Right? Notice 9, since this is not an inclusive list, you may have something else there, but turn to your neighbor in just a second and discuss and pick the 2 things that have helped you as a learner learn, remember, and apply the greatest performance challenges of your life. Ready? 2 minutes. Go. Thirty seconds. Ready? Okay, can you stop? Thank you. All right, so friends, let's hear a number. Give me a number that you use or discuss at your table. 4. Raise your hand at your table if you discussed 4. Up high. Look around. Look around. 4. Another number. 6. Raise your hand if at your table you discuss. Look around. 6. Brilliant. Another number. 3. Let's talk about 3 and 8. 3 and 8 are often conflicting, right? So let's vote for them together. 3 and 8, raise your hand. Look around, look around. Another number. We said 6. Hey, I have 7. Some 7s. Okay, let's talk about the vote, friends, for just a second. And by the way, I notice my hands never left my arms during this entire presentation, but I've done this for 3 years. For the last 3 years, I have done this slide across the globe. Europe, overseas, States, even did it for 8-year-olds once. I had to change on-the-job training because 8-year-olds don't know what that means, but something close. And here's the irony, friends. Guess what the vote was? Almost unanimously, that is number 1. Followed closely by that one, and followed almost all the time by those 2. Okay, here's the problem. No one voted for those. And friends, that is what we do. Have you ever thought about this? Every time I do this is the 1000th time I've done this. Every time I do this, I rethink. Look, guys, here's the thing. You aren't making for others what works for you. Right? So here's my challenge, friends. The difference between the blue and the red is where it is consumed. Blue stuff is workflow. Red stuff, although it might be available there, is not necessarily workflow. Right? So here's my challenge, friends. Get out of the red business and get in the blue business. Right? If you're going to move to 5 moments of need, if you're going to move to workflow instruction, it's all about what you target your deliverables for. So, middle story, back to it. What about this then, friends? What if we only taught learners through the real support resources they had back on the job? How many of you use a book in your course? Use books in your classes? Who remembers books? Raise your hand if you remember books. Okay, good. You younger people, we used to bind paper between 2 hard covers. Right? Binders. Right? And here's the thing. Have you ever done the binder test? This is the binder test. Go back to your organization. How many of you use binders? You give out binders in class, people have them. They're around your organization, they're in the cubicle. Okay. This is the binder test. Go back to your organization, find some cubicle with the binders, take your hand, and wipe it across the top of the binders. What are you looking for? Dust. You'll find a lot, right? Because, guys, here's the thing. Books are great for instruction. They are really difficult for support. They're really difficult for workflow learning. They're great. They are. I'm not saying, nor should you ever, take them out of the classroom. But as far as their usability in the world of the blue, they are not great. So I challenge you in this presentation that next time you teach, do not let a resource in your classroom that when your learners get back to the workflow, they can't use effectively back there. Right? And how different would your training classes and overall strategies be if you did that? All right? That's what we're going for today. So, have you ever heard these words? I would like 5 days of training on. Or I would like 3 e-learning modules on. Raise your hand if you heard these words. They're the most ridiculous words ever uttered. I would not go into a doctor and say, I would like 9 Advil because my arm hurts. Right? I would never walk into a doctor to do that because, guys, I'm the patient. I have the problem. I don't walk in with a solution, right? But organizations walk into our organizations all the time and they pre-prescribe what they want from us as a deliverable before we are allowed to find out why there's a problem and what might be the best way in which to meet that. Make sense? I'd like 5 days of leadership training, please. Well, why? Well, because we have bad leaders. Really? How do you know we have bad leaders? Well, I've watched them lead badly. What is that? Have you ever asked them the number, by the way? Next time they walk in and say, I want 3 days of it, say, why 3 days? You get great answers. That's all I can afford. That's how much time we can give them off the job. Right? Nothing to do with instructional rationale for building the deliverable. So friends, we've got to flip this around. Watch what happens when you live and die by the 5-day scenario. This is a real-life example. I can't say who or what the class was, but I want to show you this thing. Now, notice on the left side, those are what we call instructional treatments. In other words, when you're in a class, see those 5 things? You present content, you discuss, you show how. Get it? You be a learner for a second. Which of those are most valuable to you in instruction? If you're a learner. Hands down, practice wins unanimously. What's probably the least most effective? Present content, which I'm doing. Sorry. That's what you get when you put me up here. Yeah, I agree. But look at this course. This is a 5-day course, been around for, I can't tell you how long, but years and years and years. It is a 5-day, 1,000-slide course. And a really scary one. People get hurt if they don't perform well. It's that kind of a course, right? In order to finish this class, friends, we did the math. You have to do 33 slides an hour or a slide every 1.8 minutes. If you don't do and keep up with that cadence, you do not finish that course. We watched it twice. The instructor was a little under 400 on Wednesday. 2 days ago, both instructors finished the course. Students, eyes glazed over, hair blown back. It was terrifying to watch, right? Anyone want to guess at the breakdown? You want to guess at the breakdown of the areas? Sorry? Yeah, check it out. They spent 80% of their time presenting, 10% of their time discussing, that's 90% of the day, 5% showing how, 5% practicing, and absolutely no review. Now, let me give you a little homework. This is a fun thing to do. Guys, sit in the back of your class with these 5 things. Observe a class your instructors teach. Every 5 minutes, put a checkbox in there. Find out how you're doing with this. You all just said practice is the most powerful and meaningful part of instruction. Sit in the back of your class with this matrix, little pencil in your hand, every 5 minutes, watch the instructor, and check off what they're doing. See where your percentages land in the instruction that you're doing. But you guys, here's the problem. If it's an important stuff, everything needs to be covered. Have you ever heard those words? You guys know what an SME is? What's an SME? Hate them. Subject matter experts. Right? I don't hate them. Right? They're great people. But here's the problem with the subject matter expert. They know everything already. Right? And to a subject matter expert, everything in class is important. Absolutely. Because when we sat down with SMEs for this very course, guys, everyone knew it was bad. Everyone in the organization knew it was terrible. Everyone in the organization knew it was hurtful. I mean, like literally hurtful. But we sat down with the SMEs in a room and we said, look, we'd like to tame this thing. This is insane. What did they all say? Yeah, right? The infamous words came out. What should we, here it comes, skip? Guess what the answer was? Nothing. Because it's all important. So here's the deal, guys. Until you can justify workflow learning, until you have deliverables for the blue, they're not going to let go of the red. They're going to continue to ask you for the 5 days of, 3 learnings of, because they, in their mind, I get this, they want the content covered. But what we have to discuss for our last 24 minutes is we have to change the rules for what covered means. What did you all just say was your favorite places for the stuff that you got learned was covered? What did you pick for the places that you thought were most effective where you learned stuff? Yeah, on the job, in the workflow, right? But until we can convince that this stuff gets covered there, they're never going to let go of the red, and they're going to never let us make the blue. So, until L&D has other deliverables, this will continue to repeat itself over and over again. So friends, instead, we'd rather start with the problem. We have to flip the conversation. When someone comes into you for 5 days of something, you might want to say this: great, great, let's find out. Can I just ask you a question? What brought you in here in the first place? I mean, there had to be some time that you were sitting at your desk and went, I'm going to go see Bob. And I'm going to ask him for 5 days of training. But something had to trigger that, friends. There was a reason you thought training was a solution to something. I want to get to the problem, and then I want to know how we fix it. If you think we have bad leaders, why? Show me, defend, describe, measure why we have bad leaders, and how will we know we have good ones? Don't just say, well, that stuff goes away. I want, no. What's it replaced with? And what is good? What is great? What is best? Once we have this conversation, friends, we can then build a very different solution, and very often, it's not training. Get it? But fundamentally, we have to first and foremost, if you want to design for 5 moments, if you want to do workflow learning, you have to change the conversation and get them away from seeing us as deliverables of red stuff. We have to get them to talk to us about the blue. So, 5 moments of need. Who's heard this? Raise your hand. Who's not heard it? Raise your hand. Look at you. Great, okay, let's go there. This was invented by a dear friend and my colleague, Dr. Conrad Gottfredson. This is 30 years of his work. Who remembers blended learning? Raise your hand. Yeah, this thing came about. I used to work for a company called, well, actually, I shouldn't say them, but they're a software company in the Northwest. I was on a mission for them, folks. One of the large assignments I got when I first got there was to help them design their blended learning strategy. Didn't go well. Trust me. Had years to develop it, lots of money, smart people. Weren't getting the return we wanted. So I had this wonderful guy, Dr. Conrad Gottfredson, come in. He said, Bob, here's the problem. This is the most remarkable instruction I've ever seen that has no one to consume it. I said, Con, how is that possible? I got all the SMEs in the room. I own the SMEs. I had them all in a room. We did all the stuff we all do in Addy and all the things we do in design. And we had, to Con's point, the most brilliant, because here's the thing, Bob, you got confused with content over context. You got confused between content over context. And if you don't start with context, people will not consume your content. Does that make sense? And he introduced me to the 5 moments of need, and right away I realized why my stuff was not working. Guys, I'm building courseware for techs. Seasoned, certified techs, right? They do not live in these first 2 moments anymore. This was not new to them. These are they have been doing it for a long time. They have context. New and more is the first two, and these are often solved by training, formal instruction, which is what I had built. Right? Ever heard of 70-20-10? Anyone know the math? Right? This is the what? Give me the number. This is the 10. Perfect. But as my dad used to say, you don't want to bet your livelihood on a 10% return. Right? This is 10 of the 70-20-10. What's the 70 and 20? What's the 70? Experience on your own. Right? What's the 20? Yeah, you bother others. Right. Yeah, 70-20-10. Right? We're building a lot of stuff for 10. The reality is most people live in these three moments, friends. They live in the world of apply, they live in the world of go wrong, and they live in the world of keeping up. Change and solve. Right? So when I saw this, you guys, and I looked at the stuff that I was building in my blended learning program, you know what I realized? I didn't have blended learning, I had blended training. Does this sound at all familiar? I took 5-day courses and made them 2. I surrounded them with e-learning stuff to do back on the job. Sound familiar at all? That was my blended learning solution. It's a couple other things thrown in. But guys, the reality was, if you look at the modality versus the need it met, I was just moving the chairs around on the deck of the Titanic. My deliverables from a need-based model were still meeting 1 and 2, even though I had mixed up the blend. That makes sense? Blended learning, friends, takes into account 3 through 5, and look at the yellow dot. It uses a deliverable called performance support. How many of you know performance support? There's a great book at the bookstore on it by me and my partner. Right? Read about this stuff. Gloria Geary, 1991. Some of you weren't born in 1991. Right? She coined the acronym EPSS, Electronic Performance Support System. Right? These are the tools of 3 through 5, friends. Right? We have to start delivering these. These are blue things, not the top. That's the red stuff. You want blended learning, you need to build for all 5 moments when someone wants leadership training, because leaders are going to get in trouble. SOPs, leadership approaches are going to change. And leadership from a training perspective is awful hard to apply when I'm back in the field trying to be a leader. Right? Brilliant. So, here's the problem with lists. Bumped into a person after doing this at a conference. Came up to me and said, Bob, this is stunning, really love this stuff. We're working on it for a while. I said, that's terrific. How you doing? He said, well, we're working on 1 and 2. Okay, that wasn't quite my point. What happens when you number things? 2 things. What do numbered lists imply? Order and priority, right? This is not how a learner lives the 5 moments. What do you think the most important moment is to a learner? Which one? 3. We've asked. The world of apply. They live, folks, in the world of apply. It is the most important moment to them. Now, change and solve are derivations of apply, frankly. Right? And it is possible to do new and more in the context of apply. Right? But let me lob out your next assignment. When you build your next learning solution, build for apply first and moments 1 and 2 second. Build the life jacket first. Build the backstroke, breaststroke later. Does that make sense? It will completely change the way you design right now, friends. Completely change the way you design. Because right now, when I sit down to do instruction, I am thinking course. I am thinking class. I'm thinking e-learning. I'm thinking lesson, unit, module. That is the vocabulary of an ID. Right? You got to get out of that and think the ecosystem of performance support first. Because here's the thing, friends. You build good performance support, your classes drop by half on average. Say it again. You build effective performance support, moments 3 through 5 stuff, your design for instruction drops by half on average. Why? Because covering it is now covered in a different way. Think about it, right? Right? When I build these tools, when I show them to my clients, when I show them to those who want the 5 days of X, when I show them that they can do all these things through this wonderful thing I've built, they all of a sudden miraculously let go of stuff that they don't need covered another way. Make sense? We have to change the conversation and the way in which we look at these words. Now, 5 principles of designing then. 2 clicks, 10 seconds. When you go below the line, friends, into the moments of 3 through 5, it is their domain, not ours. And they are incredibly selfish, they're remarkably impatient, and they will click out of your stuff if it is not useful, helpful, efficient, and fast. So, the mantra we use, 2 clicks, 10 seconds. That's what you got. Think about your LMS. You ever count the clicks? Another assignment. Go home, try to find bolding in Word. Make it simple. You want to bold a word in Word, you have no idea how to do it. You probably somewhere on your LMS have a Word, I'm guessing, a Word course. Or an Excel course. Count the clicks to get to bolding. It will terrify you. Right? I've done it before in some other ones, 15 to 10. To get to, right? LMS, LCMS, CMS. Lots of messes that we have used over the years to get people to get to our stuff. 2 clicks, 10 seconds in this domain, friends. 2 clicks, 10 seconds. So to get there, 4 fundamental principles of the 5 moments. Number 1, it has to be embedded effectively or they will not use it. This is an evolutionary list of principles. So fundamentally, if I cannot, this is a physical thing, friends, if I cannot get to the content, I don't care what it is yet, but if I can't get to it, 2 clicks, 10 seconds, I will not wander and search for it. Right? So physically, I have to get to the things. 2 clicks, 10 seconds. Now, once I get past that, when I get there, what I am presented with better be helpful to me, based on who I am and why I'm there. If it's helpful to others, if it's a lot of other stuff, not helpful, I will click out, get frustrated, and leave. Who remembers SharePoint? I apologize for SharePoint. It's tough, right? A lot of organizations don't like SharePoint. But by the way, not because of SharePoint, it's not SharePoint's fault. Bad design is SharePoint. It's tough to find stuff. It's become the dumping ground of lots of stuff, right? So once they get there, the things that are presented to them need to be in the context of their role, their problem, the scenario. Next, little is better. This is a tough one for us. Little is better, right? Because they are in the problem. They want the fewest clicks, the fewest things to get them back out of trouble. This is the opposite of how we traditionally design. We traditionally design a lot of stuff, a lot of options, a lot of choices, give them tons of things to pick from. Nope, it's the other way around. When people are in the workflow and they're in change, apply, or solve, they want to get back to work as quick as possible with the most efficient way that they can. And if they need more, they will ask for it. So in the architecture that is your performance support, it is not just a tool, it is a orchestrated set of tools. And we give them to them in an evolutionary, small to large way that learners can dig deeper in and get what they need. Last, if it isn't right, they won't use it. Period. Now, this is an entire presentation, friends. This last bullet, not going to go there today. But if you don't tackle this last one, you're dead. Right? Because I can get to it fast, embedded. What shows up in front of me is great. It's what I need. You only give me just enough so I'm back to work in 5 minutes. The thing I use is wrong. It's over. Right? So whatever, here comes some words, whatever governance or maintenance strategy you come up with, the sooner you talk about it, the better performance support and 5 moments of need stuff you will build. Governance for maintaining the content, curation, we use these words all the time, and maintenance of the content. And get ready for this one, friends. They're going to own a lot of it. Moments 1 and 2 stuff, we own a lot of that. We design that, we create it. 3 through 5 stuff, you're going to be using a lot of their stuff. It's just a mess. Or it's all over the place. Right? So in this domain, we are more, this is where, in my opinion, this is where curation actually comes in. I am the curator of their content, presenting it in a consumable, efficient way. 80% of it you will not build, that's great news. But that also means you will also not maintain it. So you need a maintenance and governance strategy for performance support to work. The sooner you talk about that, the sooner your stakeholders understand their role, the sooner they realize if you borrow their stuff, you're not taking it, they will still keep it, and you need it to be kept current, the better. Important assumptions then, friends. Number one, our responsibility is not only to provide the right content, but to also provide the content in the best context with which to learn it. So we need to have a way to define and illustrate what the correct workflow context is. I cannot believe for the first 20 years of my life, you guys, how little I knew about the world my learners went back to. I knew the content. I had to teach them a CRM. I had to make them better leaders. That's the content. I did not know the context with which they had to go back and apply those things. When you journey into 3 through 5, apply means context. So if you're going to make it the best in content, you have to start understanding and doing an analysis of what the true workflow is that your learners come from. Number two, do you agree with this? The workflow is the most powerful learning environment our learners have. Do you agree with that? Do you think the workflow is the most... What did you vote for? Remember what you voted for? Discovery, bothering neighbors, mentoring, on the job, right? You picked the workflow, friends, as the most powerful thing for you. But here's the problem. We have to have a way and a methodology that enables learning in the workflow. Then we have to have a way to understand how to embed it. Now here's the problem. Even with number two, not all things are suitable for the workflow due to the criticality and impact of failure. What I'm going here, friends, is what I'm not saying is 5-day course, no course. Brain surgery through modeling and observation, brain surgery through experimentation. Not good. You don't want to hop on a plane and have your pilot say these words, "Oh, this is going to be a great day. I can't wait. I'm going to try some exciting stuff today." Right? Now, it might be a great way to learn, but the possible failure is a little critical if the plane crashes and burns. Get it? But there's a whole host of other things about piloting. We could probably learn hands-on, experimentation, failure. But there are things that are too critical to do that, so I'm going to wrap up my presentation by getting a bit into a way to defend and decide what's best. Because, guys, this is where it is all about the 1,000 slides. If we're going to get past the 1,000 slides, we have to have a way to decide. We have performance support to cover it in moments 3 through 5. I get that, but we have to decide what goes where now and defend what goes where now, because your SMEs are going to come back to you and say, that performance support thing is cool, but you ain't moving number 3 off the list because I like that. Or I think it's super important when I'm a user out there. If you pivot on like or importance, nothing leaves the list. Because that is a subjective view of content. I need an objective view that we can agree on saying, yeah, that's defendable in the workflow, where's the best place people can learn it, because no one dies in doing it. So quick story, safe failure. Anyone know what that is? Or where that is? Not Paris. Anyone know what that is? Trafalgar Square, London. My colleague, Dr. Conrad Gottfredson, was there. He had a couple hours to kill before he was flying home. He is a voracious book guy. Remember we talked about books. The guy loves books like Miss Bush. He is amazing with them. Reads them all the time. Walks into a bookstore and he sees these books. Learn in a weekend. There's 16 of them. Bought them all. He's a PhD, you guys. He couldn't believe someone had stumbled into this. Look at those things. Look at the yoga thing. That terrifies me. The outfit terrifies me. Right? He could not believe that someone had cracked the code that in a weekend you could learn these things. And he always wanted to know how to scuba dive. Lives in Salt Lake City, Utah. He's got an 11-hour flight back. He's like, I'm a good reader. I can leave London and land a certified scuba diver. So he opens the book, he begins to read, and by the way, everything to do all these things is in the book. It is covered there. It is. But that's not the point, right? Con gets a bit into the flight, flipping through the pages, and he stumbles on this word. And he goes, trauma. That sounds kind of bad. right? So he looks it up and he gets this definition, which is so helpful, right? Still has no clue. And at the end of the whole thing, these words are in parentheses. And he said, Bob, this is what I literally did. I took the book and I closed it. And I said, maybe I won't learn to scuba dive in a weekend. Now, you guys, in defense of the author, you could give that book to a certified scuba diver, an SME, and they would tell you, yes, everything to scuba dive is in that book. If you read it, yeah, you have covered it all. But you guys, here's the reality. There are things in that book that kill you. That learning through reading, instruction, PowerPoints, get the relationship here, might not be the best way to possibly consume those things. They are too dangerous to fail on your own. So Khan, on that flight, when he landed in Salt Lake, had written this. This changed my life 15 years ago. It is the critical skills analysis rubric. And basically, and I'll give you the slides, guys. They're all up on the hub if you want to get them there too. You're welcome to take pictures, by the way. But guys, read the one. Read the number one. See one? Right? By the way, defendable behavior. I can lay those things over a task and see whether or not those things are happening or are not happening. There is no subjectivity there. Read the 7. Look at the 7. We do a lot of work with the military. We always take this rubric and we edit it by our content, by the context of our learners. What kind of words do you think appear in 7 in the military? Die, death, a mission aborted, national security compromised. Those are 7 things. But guess what? There's a lot of ones in the military too, frankly. Lots of them. That are, I mean, if you fail in them, it's important. It's all important, friends. It's not what we're arguing. We're arguing if I do not instruct you on it and you self-learn, are you gonna not die? And if you don't, guess what? You learn it better than I could ever teach you. Think about that. This isn't skipping to a worser domain. This is pushing content to the best domain. So what do? Theoretically, if it's a 4 or less, I ain't teaching it. If it's a 4, this is a principle, not a rule, right? But fundamentally, once I go through all my tasks, I go through my whole analysis, and I number them all with my SMEs, and also, by the way, my BMEs. And we know what a BME is? What's an SME? Subject matter expert. What's a BME? Business matter expert. Every BME wants to grow up to be an SME. Right? But here's where we've screwed up in our design, friends. When we put SMEs in a room, we design for the finished product. And then we go out and inflict it on those who have no clue. That's why it doesn't work. That's why 1,000 slides couldn't handle it. An SME, maybe. A BME, no way. So you put BMEs, SMEs in a room, you go through your content, and you throw them the rubric, and they literally number it. Anything 4 or less is that. Anything 5 or higher, I'm teaching. And also putting in the EPSS, because they're going to encounter 5 through 7s when they're in the real world still. But I want to instruct those. This is how you lay the 5 moments over design. This is how you build in a defendable way for 3 through 5. And not so heavily 1 and 2. Want to see what this does? Last 2 minutes. Check this out, friends. This is a course for sales. This is an actual outline that we did with a customer. It's based on the workflow. Look at the black titles. Maybe you can't. Can you read the font back there? It's an eye chart. Sorry about that. But in the black, sell to a customer, complete the customer sale, resolve the customer issue. That's what the black stuff says. Below it are the tasks to do it. In the gold are the things you need to know to do. Black are the process groups. The tasks are numbered. The things you have to know to do are in the gold. This is a workflow designed outline. But here's the problem. If I stop here, it's a 2.5-day course. If I cover this through instruction, it's a 2.5-day course, even though I would argue it's designed contextually better. I haven't done anything yet. You lay CSA over this. Critical skills analysis, watch. This happened. That was the before CSA. That is after CSA. Before critical skills analysis, 2.5 days of overwhelming, cognitively loaded content. You lay CSA over it, you only teach 5s through 7s, this becomes the course. Remember this god-awful thing? Want to hear the end of the story? Right? 1,000 slides, people dying. Kind of a scary thing. See the percentages, friends? See the percentages down there? We talked about these before. Anyone want to guess what it looked like after workflow analysis, critical skills? Pick a slide number. You got 1,000 to start with. 300. Do I hear anything else? 350, 350, got 350, 350. No, stop. Check this out, friends. 75. 75 slides. And it's cool. That's neat math. But the more important part is check this out, guys. Look at the percentages, friends. Look at that. Why? Because all the stuff that was operational, paperwork, procedural stuff, still got to get covered, still got to get learned, but it got moved through a performance support into the workflow. The things people were critical were taught experientially, practice, feedback, review in the classroom. More people performed well and succeeded. Here you go, friends. Never forget this. The ships in a harbor is safe, but guess what? That's not what ships were built for. 5 moments will take you out to sea, friends. If you stay on 1 and 2, you're letting them go on their own. That is too risky. There is no life jacket in that. Right? Thanks. Hope it's helpful. Appreciate your time. Q&A, or talk amongst yourself.
If anybody has a question, I'll try to scoot her to you.
Young lady. Right here, sorry.
Can you share what some of the challenges have been to push a lot of it more out in the field and on the job training? Because one of the things that we've experienced is that when our clients send employees to training, they want us to do it all.
Correct.
Versus pushing out there, and then that makes them accountable for their
Again,
employees.
part of it is the discussion around criticality and having them focus more on, you know, the test that they're doing and also you want to show them. A lot of times when I'm trying to fight this argument, I show them the 5 moments. Walk them through the 5 moments. The person who wanted the 5 days of everything, and say, look, you've got limited time, limited budget. I've got limited resources. Here's the 5 moments we have to cover. Pick the ones you think are most important from the deliverable you want me to build. No one picks 1 and 2. Right? We have to get them to allow us to push the stuff out into the workforce. But may I also share amongst friends, guys, one of the biggest challenges I face bringing this to an organization is us. It's Addie. I love Addie. But it's not great anymore, candidly. Right? We have to fight the fight, build these solutions, show them ones that work, build a business case, show examples that link to performance to get the ability and the time and the right to build more of these. It's an inch-by-inch journey. Other questions? Comments? There's one back there.
Hi, Bob. Thank you. Always enjoy your presentations.
Sure. Thanks.
Some of the biggest, I guess, objections I get when we try to take this approach, and we're still pushing it, because I believe in it. But one of the ones we get is every time we say, well, let's put this in and develop it as a performance support solution.
Yep.
Well, we don't have a performance support system, so how are we going to do performance support? And they can't, kind of visualize it. So.
Yep.
Kind of the questions, how do you help them to visualize it is part of my question. And then the other part is when you're working with subject matter experts and clients and you say, well, you know, we can create this and we can put this in a job aid because they can pull it down and they don't have to see it in an e-learning. They're not going to refer back to an e-learning to get it. They say, yeah, but we still want the e-learning because.
Yeah.
So how do you combat this?
Yeah,
Those
two
are my
things.
biggest
First off, you guys, don't boil the ocean is one of my favorite expressions that Con says all the time, right? Build small examples that show, and they can be very simple, paper-based. SharePoint, I knocked it, but I apologize. We've seen some early PO, we call them proof of concepts, early proof of concepts attacking one performance area, not the 1,000 slides, right? But you build it in, we've seen PDFs used with links built into them. We've seen SharePoint used with documents well arranged. I'm oversimplifying, but again, I'm not building the whole solution yet because what I need is the groundswell for them to say, look, this was tremendous. Can you build more of this? And by the way, SharePoint's okay, PDFs are, can you make it better? You're trying to win over the, let me invest in the next level, but they have to see something to believe in it. And even a lesser product is better than what they've got now, candidly. My last one would be, and it was about
30 minutes of e-learning.
the what?
They still want the 30 minutes of e-learning.
Yeah. Guys, as a dear friend of mine, Frank Wynn, once said, tell them, yeah, we're going to build e-learning and then build performance support anyway. Right? You can still build, guys, here's one thing that people misunderstand about this talk. I am not saying you don't still build e-learning. I am not saying you don't still build instruction. To not do those is going the other way, and the 5 moments don't condone that. I'm not saying ignore 1 and 2 and only build 3 through 5. But what I'm saying is the balance now is so out of skew. Right? So still build them an e-learning module or 2, or maybe even a good size when you're trying to win them over, maybe a good size e-learning chunk, but add on this thing in a place that it's safe, not a 5, 6, or 7, a place that it's safe, and let them watch this thing churn and work. They will want more of it, right? But you've got to turn that attitude and that culture around a drop at a time, not an ocean at a time. And too often, because we think in terms of lessons, classes, modules, we go too big, too fast. Is that fair?
Makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, friends, I'm getting a signal we have a general session in here. I'll be down in front. Follow for more stuff. Thank you so much, friends, for your patience, your time. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Hope it helped.